What's good, everybody? It's your boy, Minister Jap, man, coming to y'all with another episode of the Pervert Police Network. You know, where we put all these perverts on blast in a real way. Like I always tell y'all, man, be on high alert for all perverts. All right, so you all always hear stories of cults like, you know, David Koresh, you know, and people like Dr. Malachi Z. York, and this has becoming a lot more popular, where you have a lot of people like Nature Boy and people like that coming out of the woodworks online as the new people. But there are a lot of classic stories that have been going untold and haven't got a lot of light shed on them, like we're about to do today. These are guys who have started their own cults, basically deeming themselves to be Jesus, the new coming of the Messiah, God in the flesh. They come up with their own religious doctrine, and they tend to have a gullible wife, and they have multiple kids, and then they have incestuous relationships with their own kids, thus creating their own little village of brainwashed children that want to see the afterlife, don't mind dying, and don't mind doing the dirty work of their father. This man that we're about to discuss today, man, coming out of Fresno, California. The man's name is Marcus Weston. This guy is a sick individual, and right now he's on death row, which I don't understand. I mean, he's an older man, but they still allow this man to eat up the tax dollars. He should have been executed a long time ago for all the crimes that he's done. This guy came up with his own Bible. And he believed in worship the devil. He believed in the vampires, drinking blood, things of that nature, living in the middle of the hood in shacks, and his kids could never socialize with anybody outside of the family, just like any other cult. These cults are sick, and these men are sick, and they usually do these cults just to get their rocks off with their own family members. They pretty much create their own sex life. These guys are perverts in every sense of the word. So let's get into this, man. Pervert.
But there's some type of David Koresh type guy inside the house, and he's holding his family hostage, and he's armed to the teeth.
Tonight, much of the country will learn about a crime that's all too familiar to all of us here in the Valley. The Wesson family murder case and the family's secrets that contributed to it will be revisited on national television. 6 years ago, Fresno became the scene of a notorious mass murder. Marcus Wesson is now on death row for killing 9 of his children.
The man killed 9 of his own children, but the crazy part about it is he had those children with his children. Again, this man had these children with his children, and those children looked at him like he was a god, like he was the second coming of Jesus.
His victims included kids he fathered through incest. In a primetime special called Family Secrets, the stories of the surviving Wesson family members, including Wesson's now ex-wife Elizabeth, will be told. Action News reporter Cynthia Rose joins us with more.
So his gullible wife sat there and let him father children by her own children. Never alerted the authorities or anything of that nature. This is how sick and twisted this man is, and this is how strong manipulation can do to people, just like David Koresh and Dr. Malachi Z. York. These type of cults are extremely dangerous, and the FBI should have been involved a long time ago, especially when you have creepy houses like this in the middle of the community where there's a bunch of people living in there, but they never come out.
More on why the family agreed to share their story and how they're doing now. Cynthia.
Well, Warren and Graciela, Elizabeth Wesson's divorce became final 2 months ago. She says that was a symbolic closure for her. Marcus Wesson was a controlling part of her life since she was 8 years old. Her family's story is the focus of an hour-long special about how she and her children survived decades of mind control and how they're moving forward now.
Elizabeth Wesson says she didn't even begin to see the deep scars her former husband left on her and her children until several...
Look at this guy. This guy is unclean, dirty, he's a pervert. And he should have been executed years ago. But again, places like California are the worst places in America where they still allow people like this to breathe fresh air. California has a death penalty and they never implement it on the right people.
Several years after the horrific crime.
It feels like I'm coming out of a fog or something, like in...
These kids that he had never even went to school. He used to homeschool his own kids, you know, to keep them away from outside information that would pretty much disprove that he's not Jesus. He wanted to be the educator. He was their everything. He lived off welfare, which is crazy. Another reason why we gotta really look at where our tax dollars go. He lived off welfare. All his kids, when they became of age, he made them get welfare, and he took the checks. He even went to prison for welfare fraud.
It's just, it's taking me time to get to where I'm at. It really has.
Tonight, Elizabeth and her 5 surviving children share the pain they endured under the constant control of convicted killer Marcus Wesson. Elizabeth says her family opened up and spoke candidly with correspondent Jay Shadler about what they did to cope with extreme physical and sexual abuse.
Now, here's the kicker. He has sons. He purposely let his sons live elsewhere and lived a double life. So the sons still think he's a great father, but all of the sons never got to really interact with their sisters. So he lived a totally different life in the house full of women that he was having sex with, which were his own offspring. And his sons revered him as a great father. So he was a great father to his sons, but a monster to his daughters. Pervert.
Abuse.
This is the first time ever they verbally expressed what they were going through. And it's gonna be hard for me to watch, very hard.
The twisted life the family led under Wesson's domination came to a halt in March of 2004 when Fresno police arrived at a domestic dispute at the family's central Fresno home. After a brief standoff, officers walked in to find 9 bodies piled in a corner.
Now, the research that I've done, when they were having a standoff in front of his home, he came out and said, and went back in the house and said, "I'll be right back." He went in there and killed 9 of his own children and put them all in coffins. He had a bunch of coffins in his home. He lived like a vampire. The police said they didn't hear the gunshots, but the neighbors and the people in the community said they could hear the gunshots. And we know how corrupt California police departments are, and they cover for each other. And they said that they didn't hear gunshots. So from the neglect of the police, 9 people died by them not breaching the door and going to go save those people. Pervert.
All shot to death. The murders ended a family secret the group hid for years.
Now, he programmed these kids to receive death as a blessing, and he shot each one of those kids in the eye. Actually, he had one of the other kids shoot the other kids in the eye, put them in the coffin. When he went to court, it was evidence that he didn't do any shooting, but they still gave him the murder charge for the manipulation that he did. Pervert.
Life of beatings, insults, and incest. Even today, sharing the way they existed is difficult.
You don't want to do that.
The questions, I wasn't prepared for the questions that they were asking, but I tried to answer as honestly as I could. And it brought back a lot of memories that I really don't want to remember, really.
As part of the story, the family returned to places they lived with Wesson, like Tamales Bay in Northern California. Although the family almost always lived together, they were isolated from the world. The journey reminded Elizabeth of the emotional scars her children will always carry.
Seeing the pain on my children's faces, because after we did the filming, it took us about a week or 2 to get over that. It's really painful.
The first Fresno police officer who arrived at the scene that day also talked about his experience. Eloy Escareno was the first to enter the home and confirm what other family members had already assumed.
Again, man, this guy is sick. We got to really go into depth on this, man.
57-year-old Marcus Wesson includes his wife, their 11 children, plus 7 more he fathered with his own daughters and nieces.
He fathered 7 more kids with his own daughters and nieces. This man had a huge following in his home, and they lived terrible. But he was so perverted in his mind, all he was thinking about was sex with his own children. It takes a certain kind of evil. These people need to be tortured. He should have been executed a long time ago. But we are dealing with liberal times where they show too much compassion for the actual criminal. Pervert.
The neighborhood anger and chaos could have been expected, but who would have predicted that 2 of Wesson's surviving sons would come wholeheartedly to their father's defense?
He did not abuse any of my family members. He's cool to me. I'm the oldest son.
They all loved him.
This is how programmed he had these kids.
They played with him almost every day. He's the best dad anybody ever had.
Exactly how the best dad anyone could ever have can also be one of the most deranged monsters in American history is the strange question at the heart of tonight's story. The answer lies in Marcus Wesson's extraordinary power to control the minds of his wife and children, a power that places him in the company of such madmen as David Koresh,
There'll be no excuse,
who led his followers to their fiery death at Waco, Jim Jones, whose flock committed mass suicide in Guyana, and of course Charles Manson, who turned flower children into...
Now what's crazy about this is that the stigma of people with these cults and incest has always been placed on white men, old white men. But it's very rare that you see this happening with black men. But we already had these type of lunatics in our community. We had Dr. Malachi Z. York. You know, right now we have Nature Boy. You know, we have these different type of people. We have the Brother Polites. We have these different type of people who utilize religious doctrine to brainwash women for their own sexual desire.
Marcus Wesson was all of this and more. And the only way to understand him fully is through the eyes of those who, only now, are beginning to see him clearly. These are the faces of survival, the children of Marcus Wesson, who by luck and courage escaped their father's reign.
Now, I'm not understanding how these kids still have, you know, motor skills and they're still able to, you know, they don't look all deformed and things like that, because upon my research with this incest thing, you know, I've seen a lot of incest families down like Alabama, and they look like the whole family from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They look all deformed, they can't talk, they can't comprehend, they can't formulate sentences. I'm not understanding why these kids just look so normal. This is crazy to me.
I would have to say I think he was sort of psychotic, just mentally not there.
Dorian, was he insane?
I think he was delusional and narcissistic.
In a religious sense, did he think he was a deity of some sort?
Yes.
Definitely. Oh yeah.
He said that if you see Jesus Christ, if you see God, you see me.
In fact, he was God. That's just the way it was.
God wore dreadlocks and commanded obedience.
I truly believed he was God until I was 19.
And this was a brutal God. The most trivial transgression, like sneaking a spoonful of peanut butter, could trigger the most vicious assaults.
He found out and ripped the cable wire out of the wall and had me stripped naked in 15-20 minutes straight, head to toe, until I
beat you with a cable.
Yeah, like a whip.
Pervert. You gotta be on high alert for these perverts, man. These guys are sick, man. Sick.
He would like beat me until I had welts, like actual stripes.
And the punishments would multiply, days into weeks, into months.
A 30-day punishment involved 21 hits on your person, and then that's 1 in the morning, then 1 in the afternoon, and 1 before you went to bed. Now imagine getting that for 30 days straight.
You have to remind him in the morning when you wake up
You have to remind him that he's going to beat you?
Yeah, you would have to remind them, just ask them, can I have my spank now? That's what we would call it.
Morning, noon, and night, Wesson.
Look at this pervert. Look at this guy, man. You gotta be aware of all these dirty cats, man, with all these kids and what they're doing with these kids.
He mixed his ruthlessness with relentless indoctrination, his own corrupt brand of Bible studies and prayer sessions lasting hour upon hour. You're living in a hellish situation. Did you know it?
At that time, no.
How can that be?
We were born into that, and we had no type of outside influence. I really looked up.
Now you can only imagine what these kids are going through, and you got to be on high alert from these kids, because this is all they know. This perverted mindset could possibly be passed down. No one really is safe. And it's unfortunate that they're victims, but a lot of times the victims go ahead and go victimize because that's how they was brought up. We're only looking at the kids who bear witness that this was wrong, but there's probably still some kids still thinking that he's God.
What's like that? I thought he was an awesome guy. No, here I am, just talking about how bad he is. It just sucks because he is,
The roots of Wesson's obsessions snake back 4 decades to the day he staged a homemade wedding ceremony, complete with a family Bible and a bride. But the bride was 8 years old, and the groom was dead serious and convincing.
This pervert married an 8-year-old. You are a pervert.
He said that I belonged to him, that I was his wife already.
How old were you?
I just turned 8.
Did it feel to you like you were married?
I
feel
believed
special?
him. Yeah, I did. I believed him. I believed everything he said.
Where do you get an 8-year-old? See, this is why we have got to be on high alert from perverts, because obviously this little girl was kidnapped. There's no, how do you get an 8-year-old? She's a missing person. She's gotta be a missing person, man. It takes a real pervert to want to marry an 8-year-old. Pervert.
Why do you think you believed him so wholeheartedly?
I guess because he paid attention to me, and he always told me that I was special, that the Lord chose me to be his wife.
By 14, Elizabeth was pregnant, and by 26, she had given birth 11 times, a nascent flock for a deranged Messiah.
She had 11 kids. And then he had 7 more. And they all living in one house, getting beat.
Bible.
He wrote his own Bible?
Yeah, and it did not get published, This Bible he's writing about, Jesus Christ being a vampire.
Jesus Christ was a vampire?
Yeah, that was his theory, because he shed his blood for us, so therefore we need his blood to be saved. And in his mind, it was like, Jesus Christ is the real vampire.
Like a religious junkyard, Wesson collected bizarre beliefs and welded them into his own grotesque vision, borrowing notions of sexual abuse from the children of God and polygamy from fundamentalist Mormons. The end was near. He could feel it.
See, this is a shame how they corrupt religion for their own sexual pleasures, But these kids don't know because they've never seen the outside world to have anything to compare it to. He made sure to isolate them so they could do his doing. Pervert.
He preached that to us, and we were prepared for that. We had, survival food, backpacks ready. We were really brainwashed into believe that God would come in the year 2000. And when he did not, we're sort of justifying, okay, it's a little late.
Though Wesson taught his family to fear the outside world, equating police and the government with the devil, sometimes there were signs from out there, like the siege at Waco, that they were not alone.
The whole 58-day standoff they had, we would watch it every day. My dad mentioned how similar him and David Koresh were.
And he would tell us how much it was like our family and how he was Christ, and he really admired him.
He was just in love with the guy.
He had multiple wives, the same thing, the charisma. And to me, I just see similar traits.
Like the false prophets before him, Marcus Wesson's mind games will lead his family toward a bloody end. And the day of reckoning is just beginning.
So yeah, like I said, man, This guy was completely sick. You know what I mean? He was a pervert. Hey man, it's your boy Minister Jap, man. You already know, man. Like, share, and subscribe this channel. You know, make sure that you follow me on all social media platforms. And again, always be on high alert for these perverts. I'm out.